Caledonian Elixir. Broadcasting from Glasgow, Scotland, welcome to the Caledonian Elixir. I'm your host Vincent, and you can get involved by calling free from the UK on 0738 745 3353. That's 0738 745 3353. And again, that's free from the UK. Or you can just click on the link beside the video. Once you do that, follow the instructions. Enter your name. It's easy. Then when you do that, just come on the show and share your views. Whether you agree, disagree, it's free. So just click on the link and call the number and join the discussion. So this show is a deep dive into the human condition, an interzone of information told with wit and true grit, without the dogmatic narrative of the mainstream media. And, you know, the world of today is one of shadowy technology, often threatening our public safety. You know, we've got geoengineering, biological weapons, EMFs, chemical weapons. However, in light of the UK government recently announcing that they are about to start aerosolic injections to dim the sun above the UK. And yes, this has been reported by the UK mainstream media. I thought essentially today's show would be about weather modifications, chemtrails, HAARP, and why they do it. So in a couple of minutes, I'm going to bring on my guest who could stop the mad breathing, please. I'm going to bring on my guest and co-producer, Gareth John, and take your calls. But first, just in case some of you are unaware regarding the government initiative in the UK to dim the sun, well, according to the Telegraph newspaper, experiments to reflect sunlight away from Earth will be approved by the UK government this month. And again, they'll be injecting aerosols into the atmosphere, which, you know, I thought was a bad thing, but apparently it's a done thing now. The UK Government Advanced Research Invention Agency has set aside 50 million for this project, and the project head, Mark Symes, said there could be small public outside experiments within weeks. So, what do you think about that? Within weeks, we're going to have aerosolic injections in order to dim the sun above Britain in May, in late spring. And, you know, in the UK, for international callers, we don't get a lot of sun in the UK, so people here are sun worshippers because it's, you know, not often we get the sun and we're intending to dim it. So this is not very, you know, popular over here. But essentially, this is something that falls under the label of geoengineering. And essentially, what geoengineering is it's a large-scale intentional manipulation of our climate. And there is even a UN treaty basically banning this, and that goes back to 1978. So this is outlawed by the UN, and it's been going on a while, therefore, and it's a threat potentially to the public. So it's strange and it's weird, and there's no one better to throw their 2 cents in on all things strange and weird than my first guest, Gareth John. So without further ado, Gareth John.
Hi, Vince. Hello.
I'm not bad, my man. How are you?
Not too bad. I'll go with sort of just problems at home.
So Gareth, man, like,
Yeah.
here's the thing: there's still people out there. So, but please,
Sorry.
stop your breathing, man. It's really. There's still people out there when you mention that kind of stuff, like weather modification to them, they don't believe it's real. But we both know the technology is real, and as I said, it's been about for a while. And if the Daily Mail and Telegraph articles isn't evidence enough, and that's mainstream publications. Back in 2012, you had the Guardian newspaper, and they had an article that I think it said something along the lines of a small group of leading climate scientists, financially supported by billionaires, including Bill Gates, are lobbying governments to back experiments on a global scale on weather modification. So here you go, the Guardian newspaper, the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, mainstream publications announcing that there are these funded efforts by, once again, Bill Gates. He seems to be involved in everything, that
Yeah,
guy.
he's just this little dean that always seems to pop up as
Yeah,
Yeah,
vaccines, but the thing,
Y2K.
but you Wall Street Journal reported on something like this too. And the European Union, if for all you EU fans, the European Parliament in 1999 called for an examination of HARP, which we'll get to what HARP is later on. So, Gareth, what do you think are the motivations of geoengineering, and can you offer a description?
Well,
Of
I
it.
mean, there's in terms of description, I think you've described it pretty well. But cloud seeding is when they spray silver oxide, carbon dioxide into the clouds to make it rain. First rainmaker was patented in 1891 by a guy called Lewis Kaplan. That's 134 years ago. So we've been developing things like this for extremely long time. In 1945, with World War II pilots, they couldn't see the fog. They were ditching their planes, so they got pipelines of gasoline, sprayed into the sky, burnt it to clear the fog. So they've been manipulating weather for, 80 years? I'm sorry about my
Briefly on us.
breathing. I'm trying my best, it's quite what.
So you were saying World War? Did you say World War II pilots?
Yeah, and during 1945, the RAF pilots could not see in the fog.
So you're saying this is like a weather weapon thing?
Well, yeah, when they were coming into land, they couldn't land.
Oh, right.
So they were, because the fog, so they were just ditching planes in the ocean.
Right.
So they get pipelines of petrol
Aye.
and sprayed it into the sky, set it on fire, and that the heat,
Aye.
made the fog.
I mean, there's definitely a weaponization dimension to this. I mean, did you know in the 1950s, the US Army sprayed low-income areas in St. Louis with zinc, cadmium, and radioactive particles,
Yeah.
causing mass illness and disease to the predominantly black neighborhoods of St. Louis. And then after St. Louis, you've got Agent Orange and Vietnam,
Yeah.
other examples.
We also had Agent Popeye in Vietnam.
What was Popeye again?
Agent Popeye is when they cloud seeded to prolong the monsoon season.
Right.
Do you remember Forrest Gump?
Aye.
No, the scene when you going like, we had sideways rain, we had hard rain, we had every kind of rain possible. That was Operation Popeye, which led to the Geneva Convention having a paper in 1977 to ban weather weapons, which was ratified in 78, around about the same time as the UN.
So this is like a international movement then to sort of ban this this research, and I guess it's got all types of negative health conditions associated with it. Sorry, that's my cat. But if we want to get to HARP and what HARP is, HARP essentially is an acronym for the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, I believe it is. And essentially, it's an array of installations, a network of phased atmospheric heaters. And if you're listening and you're trying to make sense of what HARP is, I mean, like, what is an atmospheric heating system? Well, imagine 180 antenna units, right? All organized in 12 rows with an array of antenna all pointed in the upwards direction, working together, radiating pulsed power upwards into the biosphere, cross beams of directed pulse energy, which essentially heats up the ionosphere. And this HARP ionospheric heating system is located in Alaska. And if you want an image of it, I mean, Gav John, if you could upload an image from so we could pull up so we can see. Right, so if you're watching, that's an image of HARP in Alaska. An interesting thing about HARP is the guy who developed the patent for HARP, Bernard Eastlund, he transferred that patent over to a company called E-Systems. Now, that's standard stuff. But Raytheon, the defense contractor, got a hold of E-Systems. So you essentially had one of the biggest defense contractors on the planet with their hands on this weather modification technology. And that's where it kind of gets a bit, suspicious. But again, we'll get more into that. But if you could just pull down the image of HARP.
Yes, sure.
The thing with the modification of weather, as we said, it's outlawed by the UN in the 70s. But even the Department of Defense, due to Title 50, that puts a ban on and this is in the US, the Department of Defense, that puts a ban on biological, chemical, and environmental weapons, geoengineering weapons. But, those in power essentially always find a loophole. They find a way to get around this. And the way they do this is in 1951, I believe, there was the Invention and Secrecy Act, right? And what this did is it allowed the US to conceal technological inventions from open source control and transfer it instead to the national security state. And that is how they set up HARP. Because as I said, this guy, Bernard Eastlund, who set up the 80s, the patent for it in the 80s for HARP, as I said, that was transferred to a company, E-Systems, which was eventually acquired by Raytheon, which is one of the largest defense contractors. Now, it's pretty standard source that projects are outsourced to weapon contractors. That happens. But in the case of HARP, what that did is once that took the potential for HARP out of the public eye. Again, the loophole lies in saying it's for agricultural pharmaceutical research. So if you outsource it to private corporations connected to the Department of Defense and say it's for agricultural research, that takes the public eye away from it. That takes the representatives, whether in Parliament or in the Congress, from getting, access to the project.
So basically, even though it's banned for military and military
Purposes,
yeah. So all you have to do is say it's for industrial or agricultural research or whatever, like pest control, for example. And then they just send it a defense contractor. They basically make it a Black Op, all this stuff. And then they say it's an official secret.
Well, I don't think they need to disclose it once. Once it's transferred to a private company connected to the Department of Defense, and it's done for, say, space research or agricultural research or pharmaceutical research, then Congress doesn't have access to that specific program. Exactly. It's kind of like the whole thing that was happening in space too. There are these congressmen that try to push for legislation preventing the weaponization of space, but if in the legislation what they say, forbids the weaponization of space, but if they say it's for space research, and let's face it, weaponization can be research. So that's how we get round that, a wee
Yeah,
loophole,
it's just-
you know.
It's just that I'm playing double speak as always. That's it.
Mhm.
You know.
And by the way, so for those listening, like, if you enjoy this or you're learning anything, you can subscribe and follow on YouTube and Twitter. And you know, if you really like, and if you really want to help us out, you can, you know, donate there, and there's a cash tip link. So that would help us out, and it makes the experience for everyone involved better. You, me, the cat. You know, I've got a cat here. You
Yeah.
know, can you see the cat?
Yes, you can see cool.
Yeah,
Just about.
I'm like an evil genius with my cat. You
Yeah.
know.
I've thought that for years, but I don't want to say anything.
So I mean, the Telegraph article essentially, you know, cites that aerosol injections to. I mean, they say it's to mitigate the effects of global warming. This is what's going to happen in the UK. So, what do you think about the theory of the purpose of chemtrails? Is it's done in a sense to create a form of ozone or protection from climate change?
I don't buy it. I don't think it.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Do you know what? That's a good question. I think we should really expand on that. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to have a break where we're going to play a song, and then we're going to bring on another guest, Hugh, and I'm going to pose that question to Gareth and Hugh about what they think the reasons and the purposes behind geoengineering and aerosolic injections, and if they think it could be being done for the purposes and reasons that the UK government says it's been done to protect us from climate
okay, cool.
change. So, Gav
Ooh,
John, if you could play some Meet Me in Moscow.
I shall endeavour to do my best.
And this is a song that was it was created by my friend John. So, you know, thanks to John for turn it up, please.
The train said Moscow as I stood against the wall, stranded in Warsaw with no one to call. I needed to get there before the heat came down. I knew that my future lay deep down in the underground. Meet me in Moscow. Come on and meet me in Moscow. The mood was undecided. Some of them scratched their heads. The truth was ill-divided, broken like a frozen piece of bread. But I needed to get there before the heat came on down. I always knew that my future lay deep down in the underground. Meet me in Moscow. Come on, meet me in Moscow. And meet me in St. Petersburg by the sea. I know that something's waiting for me. Golden visions as the bronze
of the song.
The outcome was inevitable, like balmy days in Cambodia. The sunsets were incredible, like trout fishing in Siberia. 'Cause we all need to.
Hello, here.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Hey,
Okay,
something.
hi.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear Gareth John? Okay.
I can hear. Yeah, I can hear him.
Right. There's no difficulty with his audio at all, Jonas.
It's fine from my end. I can hear you both fine.
Yeah, good. Because we're using a different microphone setup, and obviously I can't tell because I'm live. Right, Hugh. So I take it you were listening from the beginning.
Yeah. So there was a
Right.
few
So
little
like,
things.
so
Obviously, I
first of
picked
all,
up on what you were talking about, and obviously I had some points which was connected to that as well. Obviously, I heard you talking about Raytheon, and strangely enough, I was just talking to someone who worked in Raytheon for 30 years, right? But I was also watching an interview by a guy who works.
Hugh, see before you get
at
to your point, Hugh, before you get to your point,
Yes,
There
yes,
was a question, but I was asking you and Gareth John, right? And it relates to the
yes,
Telegraph article that is about the mitigation of the effects of climate change through the use of aerosolic injections that's
yeah,
going to be taking place in the UK in
yeah,
a couple of weeks.
yeah,
And I wanted to, you can obviously expand on what you're saying about your colleague, your friend,
yeah,
and what you know about
yeah.
Raytheon, etc. But in terms of what you feel about the purposes of aerosolic injections and chemtrails being done in order to mitigate the effects of climate change. Do you think that is their genuine intention, or do you think there are other motivations, behind it?
Hello,
Hi,
hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, we lost signal there. Could you repeat that again, please?
Right. So
Yeah,
do
can you
you?
repeat what you just said there because it cut off?
Right. Well, do you think that the theory, the purpose of chemtrails and aerosolic injections to mitigate the effects of climate change, do you think that's a genuine intention of the government, or do you think there's something else there?
See the kind of chemtrails and all this weather modification. They've been researching it in the lab since 1946. 3 scientists, testing it in a lab, and they've been modifying or it's like they've been modifying the climate ever since then. And obviously, when they're spraying ice particles or iodine, silver iodine into the atmosphere, we really don't know what effect that can have on us, because we're breathing this in. And they've been in full denial about it in the past, about the chemtrails. But obviously, when you see videos of an airplane in the sky and they're saying, oh, it's just the crystals in the air, that's causing the chemtrails. And then you see a video of a plane switching it off and it just completely stops. Then that they're experimenting with us. And I don't think it's so much for the weather. I think it's like the CIA and everything like that have been spraying us with things for many years, obviously. And it's like, obviously, I heard you saying about the story about things sprayed on on the public, without their knowledge. Obviously, I don't remember everything about that, but I remember kind of watching a documentary about it. So I really don't trust the government one bit. And when they start,
I mean,
yes,
I remember coming across a conspiracy years ago that they said chemtrails is essentially a global effort with public secrecy, essential to basically prevent public panicking. Even non-participant nations are getting spread, because I remember, I think it was Cyprus, the councils in Cyprus are not only responsible for land management, but are also responsible for air and the sky above them. And when the inhabitants of Cyprus were witnessing these chemtrails in their skies, they basically appealed to the local council and who had jurisdiction over this, and they were nonplussed, none the wiser as to who was responsible. So then the Cypriot government got in touch with the Greek government again. They were none the wiser, and then the Greek government got in contact with the EU. Hence why the EU has been in contact with the US government, even over HARP specifically, trying to examine the technology. And I think, as I said, the EU banned weather modification. So it is. I mean, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, and there is historical precedent that they have did this to sort of shield the Earth, because there was a project titled Westward where the US dumped, I think it was the US, they dumped 350 million copper needles in 3,000 above the Earth's surface to provide a protective shield against solar flares. So there is precedent that they do this sort of thing to sometimes help civilization or mitigate the effects of natural, disasters or solar
But
flares.
the thing is, there were there was something that I watched as well, that scientists were saying that if they put gold particles in the atmosphere, for instance, it could help the atmosphere. So obviously they have been experimenting on us for years. I mean, obviously since the 1940s, So I mean, it's like, look what happened in Dubai, as an example, right? It's like Dubai, since I think the 90s to the early 2001, right? They've been doing all the weather modifications, and then look what happened. I mean, I don't know when exactly it happened, because time flies. Maybe about a year ago now. Look at all the biblical floodings we had in Dubai, and it just goes to show.
The UAE, I think during the summers caused rain cloud, storm weather, precipitation, basically for the was it the Olympics or the World Cup? What was it?
No, they actually do it all year round. It's like they do it all year round, right? Because you've got to remember, Dubai was built on a desert. That's pretty much what it is. It's naturally it wouldn't get rain because, as you say, there's no precipitation going up. There's no water on the ground to go up to cause clouds. So they seed the clouds. And I think they got their calculations wrong. And obviously, we've seen cars floating down the streets and stuff like that. People were worried about buildings possibly falling over because obviously everything's built on sand, concrete on sand, and stuff like that. They've dug so deep down. So, and then all the weather problems we have in California as well. It's like, I've never seen weather like this before. It's like sometimes it's like we don't have fires, and then suddenly we got loads of fires and stuff like that. And a lot of people think there's weather modification, not just to create snow and rain, but to create drought heat, to divert the clouds and divert.
Well, isn't that disaster capitalism? Because if you can create drought, if you can create wildfires, then you could be responsible in the reconstruction effort and potentially make billions.
Yeah, and on top of that as well, and a connection with it as well, just like what happened to Hawaii, all the fires and stuff like that, right? Look what happened to California, right? They want to build a smart city in Hawaii. They want to build a smart city, I think, in time for the Olympics. I think in Hollywood, So, what good way to do it? Weather modifications, have people setting fires, create droughts, empty the reservoir in San Ynez and stuff like that, which helicopters would come down and take the water from. It just seems to be like it was all like a pandemic, kind of like the pandemic kind of thing was, a pre-pandemic. I think this year was planned, and another thing about California as well.
Gareth, what do you think? Do you wait a minute to include Gareth John? Gareth, what do you think? Do you feel that it is for the sole purposes that the government are claiming it's for, that it's
Of course
to
not.
mitigate? No, you.
Of course not. I mean, why? I mean, the whole thing is they're weapons, right? They're not designed to help. They're supposed to hurt.
What are you talking about? Are you talking about the HARP or the aerosolic injections? Like,
Well, the heart for a start. I mean, did you ever hear about the Roswell hum?
no.
So, like in July 2013, there was a reports of a hum round about Edinburgh, and and people were getting like headaches, insomnia, and they were getting like bizarre and irrational behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they turned on HARP and it'd been picked up by an ex-Cold War station, and it was just making people go mental. And then all the Wi-Fi signal was like perfect. It was as they were turning on HARP and then turned HARP off.
Right. So, I mean, that reminded me. Did any of you watch Art Bell back in the day?
Yeah, well,
Q, did you watch Art Bell back in the day?
What, the radio station?
Yeah. Well, Midnight in the Desert or Coast to Coast.
Yeah, I've listened to them all.
There was a caller on the Art Bell show, and Art Bell had these call lines, and one of the call lines was for people who believed they didn't have a soul, who were soulless. And this caller said, he came on that I don't have a soul line, he was soulless. And he said that ever since they installed a smart meter that was just a foot away from his bed, he slept right beside it, but he began experiencing difficulty in sleeping, nausea, headaches, lethargy. And Art Bell sort of said that sounds like the kind of reason you would see a doctor, not that you're soulless. And he's like, no, I mean that. But ever since they installed this smart meter, I think the microwaves from the meter are causing neurological problems, and I feel like I feel soulless, like I don't have energy. And as you know, Art Bell, I think he was an engineer. I know he worked for the Air Force, before he was a radio show presenter. So definitely, like, these technologies can have side effects causing neurological harm. It's But what were you saying, Hugh, about Raytheon? You said you had a friend who was.
Yeah, I mean, at first, obviously, I watched a documentary by a guy called Eric Berg. He was on Sean Ryan's show, right? And just so you know, Sean Ryan says you can take clips from anyone can take clips from his show, right? So Eric Hecker worked for. Oh, 1 second. 1 second, something flagged up. Okay, so Eric Hecker worked for Raytheon, right? And it just so happens to be that I knew someone who worked for Raytheon for 30 years myself. And I was telling him about Eric Hecker, and I was trying to get some information out from him, but it was kind of rolling his eyes as if he knows there's certain stuff that happens there that he can't talk about, right? But basically what Eric Kecker was talking about is he's talking about a lot of things that's happening in Antarctica down at the South Pole, and as you mentioned as well, kind of directed energy weapons, ice cube neutrino detectors or something like that, right?
Hey, what did you
And
say?
basically,
Ice cube neutrino detectors? What's that?
it's I think it's like I think they're the size of a basketball or something like that. I think it is, and they're like 1 kilometer away from each other. I think they're like in a square or a triangle. I'm not too sure, and it's used as a kind of telescope kind of thing, right? But every time they fire it up, they've had issues, right? There was supposed to have been an earthquake in New Zealand, which was connected to when they fired that up. They knew it caused an earthquake in New Zealand, not intentionally, by mistake, right? And he was asked as well about, could this directed energy weapon be used not just to cause earthquakes, but to manipulate the weather as well? And he says yes. He says it can do multiple things, and and basically Raytheon he basically says Raytheon's been under investigation since the 1980s because of a lot of dodgy stuff they've been doing, and basically as I was saying, the whole thing, which is it's not supposed to be a directed energy weapon, but it can be used as that, and it's causing a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But basically, it's like I'm not completely versed in this, but I remember reading something about it where if you get 2 neutrons or something like that, it's split or something like that. One can be like 1,000,000 miles away from the other one, and they'll still copy the same movements as each other, right? And basically, he was saying those little ball-shaped things, the size of a basketball, which is 1 kilometer apart. He says are digital optical modules, right? And basically, it's basically like a transmitter kind of thing, and basically what it's to do is it's to transfer. It's a transmitter that basically moves faster than the speed of light, so this is the technology. It's kind of like Star Trek kind of stuff, the way it sounds, right? That we would not understand, it's and basically when they're saying about the neutron copying each other, that's, I think they call it quantum entanglement or something like that, right? So
Hugh, you're breaking up. Hugh, you're
Yeah.
breaking up.
Okay, so when the
You're-
neutrons when the neutrons copy each other, even if they're 1,000,000 miles apart, it's called it's like quantum entanglement, right? So he's basically saying that Raytheon are dabbling with technology that can cause earthquakes. It can cause they can direct hurricanes and stuff like that. So
Oh yeah, there's
obviously,
there's evidence
apparently,
that LiDAR can cause hurricanes and earthquakes and stuff like that.
yeah, and basically he was saying that the directed energy weapon, it can be used into the atmosphere. It says, or it can go through the ground. It can go right through one end of the earth all the way to the other. So I think the weather modification. I think you could drop nukes on a country. If there was like a Hiroshima.
Are you aware that
or what you could do is you could
the Van Allen belt?
I know, but that's sense. Or you could redirect a hurricane onto a country and completely destroy that country and cause billions and billions of damage, right? So I think.
Hugh, are you aware that in the late 50s they nuked the Van Allen belt?
Yeah, I know that, and they actually made it worse. They actually made the Van Allen belt worse because of it. But yeah, it's like so it's like, look what happened. It's like to Southern America. I don't know, was it maybe over 10 years ago or something like that? where all the water got dumped down and it completely flooded the place, right? Hurricane Katrina, I think the name of it was, right? To me, I think that was deliberately directed by probably Raytheon, or it could be the HARP, as you're saying as well, because they're sending transmissions into the atmosphere from Alaska and stuff like that,
Well, Q. But
Yeah.
here's the thought process.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of project titled Cloverleaf?
No.
Right. And this is something the Wall Street Journal even reported many a minute ago. Project Cloverleaf essentially is stratospheric seeding done intentionally to reduce the effects of global warming. So this is a different project, like
Yeah.
Westward, that was done to mitigate the effects of the environment. So the plan essentially was to utilize stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, sort of, and it's similar to the UK government initiative that we're going to be getting later on in the month, using aluminium dust and sulfur dioxide to diminish some of the sunlight on the Earth's surface. However, Cloverleaf essentially was presented to the public as a joint US-Canadian effort at climate management. But in reality, it was essentially bankrolled as a covert military operation. Right, so the conspiracy involving Cloverleaf is that the true purpose is said to seed the atmosphere with chemicals and metallic salts for environmental warfare, as these elements facilitated the operations of HARP. Now, by the way, this is something that Bernard Eastlund, the guy who developed the patent for HARP, Eastlund even suggested himself that the chemical polymers in the atmosphere that were being injected by aircraft helped HARP function. In other words, without the polymers in the atmosphere, the pulses that HARP would project emit would go right through the atmosphere. So that these metallic ingredients, salts, aerosols, are part of the overall utilization and function of HARP ionospheric heating. So yeah, I mean, but is that geoengineering done for multiple reasons? For profit, disaster capitalism, to the reconstruction effort, to possibly mitigate the effects of global warming. But as you said, with everything, all advanced technologies can be used by the Department of Defense for nefarious. Gareth, John, what do you think about that? I mean,
Yeah, there is a sort of, anytime the Department of Defense gets involved, there is some sort of nefarious thing. I also have another theory as well, like like with solar panels and like hydroelectric, mainly solar. Well, see if you have your house with alternative heating strategies. If you have excess energy, you can sell it back to the grid. Right? So if they're dimming the sun, that could reduce the profit for the consumer, and rather than the energy companies always make a profit. But rather than having to pay people out, if there's less sun and there's less solar.
So you're saying that this is something that the energy companies are doing to prevent the public from making a pill. Why would they be doing that?
Well, why would they not?
Well, are you arguing that they want to completely monopolize the energy industry?
Yeah.
And so they don't want to share. I mean, they have control of the grid, do they not? I don't understand this train of thought.
Well, I mean, if they they spent 60 million on solar initiatives, right? Spent 50 on this. If they stop paying people money back to them, right? Stop these incentives by dimming the sun so there's less energy. So the people are using less energy. No, people are using more energy. then companies will have to pay them.
Wasn't there, like, in Spain and Portugal recently, a complete blackout because
Yeah,
we
just
transitioned.
a few days ago because they switched to renewables as well. And it's like they knocked down all the nuclear power plants, and then there's a massive countrywide blackout in Spain. It also went into Portugal and not the Falklands. You know, ironically, like
Not for what?
not Gibraltar. Sorry.
Aye.
Well, I wonder who owns Gibraltar.
Oh, that's.
The UK.
Aye.
So like,
But I mean, parts of southern France too were affected.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah, it was massive. It was,
So you believe that the cause of the blackout wasn't like Russian hacking or something like
it
a
could-
virus? You think it was like the transition over to
I think it was probably a bit of
renewables?
both. You know,
Aye.
probably a bit of both.
There's
not
California. I mean, there's
traditional
California, right?
Mhm.
Sorry, there's California. It's like the Democrats have all said within a certain period of time they wanted to push fossilized cars out the window and have everything electric, right?
Oh, sorry, I'm getting a call. I'm getting a caller. One second here.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, Vince.
Hi, who's speaking?
It's the Katie for Glasgow.
You share your views?
Well, I just feel that if you speak to people that are dead against this intervention with the weather,
Mm-hmm.
I think nature should be kept to its own natural perfection. It could have disastrous consequence. And I just think in Scotland, you're waiting for a good day all year round.
Right.
Now the sun go up to sun worship in Scotland, and I just think the public's dead against this, and I don't think you should be allowed to go against the public's wishes.
Well, you are aware that Mark Symes, who is the project head, said that experiments outside will take place in a couple of weeks. So this is going to be happening whether you like it or not this month.
Yes, it's just when there isn't more people power. Now,
So, I mean, there
there's
are
more
people to-
control over these things.
There are people today
Is
that's
this the British government that's making this decision for the whole of the UK for these experiments to take place?
yes.
You're still there.
Right. I say yeah, it is. It is. Well, I mean, what can we do? I mean, I've not met a person yet to this day that approves of this decision. As you said, don't get a lot of sun in the UK, and so well, it's nice for you to call in. Have you got anything else you would like to contribute?
No, that's about it.
Where's she calling from in Glasgow?
Just listening to the people that it kind of freaks people out interfering with the weather because it's just natural.
Where are you calling from, Glasgow?
Partick.
Partick. I know Partick. Partick's close to where we are too. Well, so enjoy the rest of your night, and I hope you tune in again and listen, and enjoy the weather.
Yes, I'm sure to Vince, right. Good
Well,
luck.
well.
Okay, good night.
Right,
Okay, good night.
Bye-bye.
Right. Oh well, first caller of the night. It's always good. So who was
Oh, yeah. It's so basically what I was saying is, I mean, touching on what Gareth was talking about in California, right? They want us to move away from gas-powered cars within 10 years, I think it was, and they were saying they wanted everything to be electric until they fell out with Elon, right? And basically in California, we get blackouts quite a lot, right? There's not enough electricity to keep every home running in California, right? And basically in California, the government had all these billions of dollars to build all the electrical charging stations and the infrastructure for electric cars. they never done it, right? The only person who's been building all these electrical charging stations is Tesla, and other companies like Ford, etc. With an adapter, they can actually use the Tesla charging ports, right? So they want us to transition over to that, but they're not putting the infrastructure in place for it to happen, So as what Gareth was saying is, it sounds like the UK is not doing the same thing. They're thinking one step ahead instead of 10 steps ahead.
Yeah, you're breaking up again there. Right, do you know what we're going to do? I think we're going to hit another break, and I'm going to put a song on called "Sanctified" by Nine Inch Nails.
And if someone wants to call straight after the break, the number's below. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, and can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you better now than before. It sounds louder.
Right, great. So again, people, if you're listening, don't forget, if you're on YouTube or you're on Twitter, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and if you like, definitely like. And if you want to really help, definitely donate. Right, so here's my next point. And I think entire wars could be being waged right now, essentially using weapons of geoengineering. And you've got ELF, extra low frequency, generated by antenna arrays. Ionospheric heaters like zapping chemtrail particulates. You've got Project Sanguine again. That was one that utilised ELF, and think about this. Is it any coincidence? I think you were kind of alluding to this earlier. Is it any coincidence that over and over and over again, nations that are designated by enemy states of the US experience massively destructive weather events? So I'll give you a couple of examples. So when the Americans began fighting the Taliban, there was a 7.4 earthquake that occurred in Afghanistan. In Syria, another state that's designated by the US as an enemy state, 2023 experienced an earthquake 7.8 on the Richter scale, killing tens of thousands and destabilizing the regime there even further. And then, as we know, the regime now has collapsed. What else? I think you had.
Into Turkey as well.
You had one in Haiti, which killed. In 2010, you had one in Haiti, it killed 500,000. That's it. And I remember President Hugo Chavez even said it was a tectonic weapon used by the US. And in 2017, Iran experienced one killing tens of thousands too. And not to forget the freak weather incident that occurred down in the helicopter transporting the Iranian president and defense minister just a couple of months after they authorized a missile attack on Israel. So, and also I can remember that I think it was TASS, the Russian. TASS is a Russian news agency. They said that the massive earthquake that impacted Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Pakistan they called it a US weapon. So, first of all, I'm going to Gav, what do you think of? You've said definitely this is a weapon. What do you think of this being used for disaster capitalism or as weaponry to take out enemy states?
I do think it's extremely convenient that all these enemy countries, enemy states seem to get some sort of drought, famine, or
Your microphone.
earthquake, or hurricane or whatever every so often, especially anytime there's some sort of posturing or aggression. I think that it's hell of a coincidence that they're not using these weapons. If these weapons don't exist, that these things seem to keep happening. And they keep happening to specific
regions,
states.
parts. I mean, they do happen all across the world, but Haiti, we all know Haiti has been a country that's been a thorn in the side. You had Papa Doc back in the day, remember?
Yeah.
Cuba, Fidel Castro. I mean, of course, you got them in Hawaii, and Hawaii is another island nation, part of the US. It's not exactly an enemy nation, but Hugh was alluding to the fact that Hawaii experienced massive wildfires that destroyed thousands. Was it thousands of acres of land? What was it?
It was almost the entire island, as far as I'm aware. I think it was called Maui. I think the island. And basically, that was one of the places that was. It's like they were looking at the possibility as a smart city, and a smart city is one of these cities where they want you to be able to travel as little as possible to get from A to B. It's like you live in very close, everything's there, and basically, as they've done in Hollywood as well, they're making it difficult for people to get planning permission to rebuild their homes and stuff like that, and we think they're just trying to push people out the door. But the thing is, as well, it's like the mayor of Los Angeles as well, Karen Bass. I think there was text messages that she was sending that before she went to Africa on holiday, she knew there was something that was going to happen. So she basically got caught out communicating with someone that kind of came across like she knew a disaster was going to take place. And as I says, she left the country to go to Africa when it happened. The reservoir, the reservoir, the reservoir in San Ynez was empty, etc. And and there was people caught lighting fires as well. So I think they're using the weather machines on us. They're getting other people to light fires as well because they want to push the population
sorry for interrupting. I need to go and get some headphones for Gareth because he can't hear you properly. So if you could keep on speaking, but I'll be back in just 10 seconds, right?
Okay, I'll just wait till you come back and maybe someone can think about calling in. So if you're watching this, I'm Hugh. I'm Scottish. I'm living in California. And Gareth and Vince are living in Scotland, Glasgow. So if you're in the USA or if you are in the UK, why don't call in and start a new topic spanning from what we're talking about tonight.
Right, okay. Here, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Gareth, John.
So
can you hear you?
So basic. Yeah. Can you hear us? Okay, Gareth. Yeah.
Yeah. See the wee knob on the side of on the head. Keep speak.
You got to pull the speaker over. Tell him to pull the speaker over.
Oh, I can hear.
Yeah, but put your mouthpiece over, Gareth, so we can hear you.
No. He's got a different microphone.
All right. Okay. So as I say, it's like
he's using a different microphone. It's on his lapel.
It's like Karen Bass, the mayor of California. She knew there was something going to happen in California. We think they're trying to depopulate the highly populated areas, by wildfires. We've had fires in California before, but we've never had anything like that before, and it wasn't just that as well. I mean,
forest management is very poor in California.
Well, can I tell you something about the forest management, right? The Native American Indians, right? They had a way of clearing the forest floors, right? What they used to do is they used to do something which was called controlled fires, right? And what they would do is they would burn certain sections of the floor of the forests, and then they would put it out, and then they would move to another area, put that out, and keep moving. That was forest management. Now, what happened is when they stopped doing that, and the cities took over to do it, they were just letting things build up, and that's why the U.S. president at one point he said to Gavin Newsom, you need to do something about the base of your forests. They need management. You need to. It's because California gets all these billions of dollars and they spend it on everything except forest management, roads, infrastructure. We don't know where the money's going. And no.
So wait a minute. Are you implying that was intentionally the Palisades, the whole area that was burnt down due to the fires? Do you think that was intentional?
Oh, 100%. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people in California. You won't hear them on the internet saying it, because obviously a lot of people's voices get suppressed. And Karen Bass has always tried to get people's voices suppressed as well. it's obviously intentional, and I'll tell you what California's been guilty for in the past as well, right?
So you're saying it was done in order to suppress, or sorry?
It's they need they need the whole Hollywood Hills area. I mean, obviously, I was actually up where all the fires were, probably 2 weeks before they all started, and I can't believe that all the places I've seen are completely gone, right? It's Hollywood Hills, right? And basically,
Well, so you're alluding to, if I'm sorry, are you therefore saying that it was done for business purposes?
See, when you talk about business practices in California, there's always you give business contracts. It's like basically you give big, huge business contracts to people, and then they basically and they're your lobbyists, in the political circle. They donate money to help your campaigns and stuff like that. There's always kickbacks, so it's to me, it was intentional. She knew something was going to happen, right? And it's that these kind of things have been happening.
Well, we don't know if she knew. We can't say she knew.
There was actually there was text messages where she was caught communicating with someone. And
what did she communicate?
I mean, I can't remember exact words for word, but she knew something major was going to take place, right? And she still decided to actually go to Africa. Now, I'll tell you something about California as well, right? The farmers have had a very hard time because basically what they've done is the cities have all redirected a lot of the mountain water flow coming down from the mountains, right?
Hugh, you're going in and out. Listen,
yeah,
you're cutting out every 10 seconds.
Okay.
Are you able to log?
Can you hear me now?
It just cuts out every so often. I can hear you, but it cuts out.
Okay.
Every 10 or so seconds.
Everything okay now?
No, it's still going. Just keep on talking, and I'll tell you if it happens again.
Okay, so the water coming down from the mountains,
No, it happened again. I'm going to just log out and try and log back in. Perhaps.
Okay.
I think what you was saying.
How do I log back out and back in?
If you could just terminate this and then re-click link.
Okay.
And we'll add the stage again. Right.
Battery saver's on.
Battery saver. Right. Okay. Give me 1 second.
Shoot back. There we go. Welcome back to you.
Hello. Hello.
Sorry, Hugh, I had to put something in there on the laptop.
Okay.
So I think what Hugh is alluding to is, so when you're saying business purposes, crop failure, farmers, I think crop failure, drought is used very often to drive farmers to sell their land. You've got big agriculture. We talk about big farmer. We've also got big agriculture, and
who owns most of the farmland?
Monsanto. Well, they've got a patent and all the. And I think devastation, right? Results in reconstruction for big construction companies. So if you've got the ability to level sanctions of these countries and then use NGOs to basically shift people from their real estate, that often ends up in the hands of private corporations. You do have the rise of a whole new industry that I've alluded to several times, like disaster capitalism. So when you're talking about the Palisades and the wildfires and the farmers, could it be possible that that was done intentionally so we could seize real estate from owners and put it in the hands of someone else?
I mean that could be one of the reasons, but there's another thing as well, right? See in California, right? Obviously, I see it all. I've seen it happening before, right? We've got these things that are like concrete kind of rivers that are built and they're fenced off, and they run beside the road, and it takes all the water that goes down the drains on the ground, and all the water that comes from the mountain that goes down and drains, and it washes it back out to the ocean, right? Which is a complete waste of water, right? Now, the farmers have been complaining for years, all the agriculture, we need water. California is super hot, right? So what they've been doing is they've been redirecting the water flow so that the farmers can't tap into that. So if the farmers want water for their crops, they need to pay a lot of money for it, So it's like they're putting farmers under a lot of financial pressure, just for what they should get naturally, So it's like they're trying to make money off of it, the council, and it goes back to this as well. When you redirect the water from naturally where it would be falling anyway, then basically what happens is you create a drought, and is the whole way it creates a drought is like the whole way we get rain falling from the sky, Gareth, right? Is we get the precipitation, right? The rain hits the ground, and then in the morning it all rises like vapor back into the sky, and then it starts its whole process over and over again, right? But if they're redirecting the water that would be falling onto that land, or farmers would be using it, or naturally falling on every place of the land, then we create a drought on the land, and the grass and everything in California, the grass in California, sometimes it goes like dry straw. It's like you could do a bit of flint to it, and it would set a wildfire, right? So it's like when they redirect that to the ocean, it's like there's no water on the land for the precipitation to take place. So what they're doing is, in a way, they're controlling the clouds. I mean, if they allowed the rain just to settle on the land naturally, we would have lots of beautiful clouds in California, but we don't, because that's all caused with the precipitation, and because we don't have the water in the land rising in the morning. It makes
and let's see if people who are listening and think this is too big. Like, these people couldn't be doing this, because how could they possibly be getting away with it? Now, I want people just to think of one thing, right? Like, who owns the patent for HAARP? It's Raytheon, right? Now, who predicts the weather cycles, providing the US government? The NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, with data. Again, it's Raytheon. So the same people who are manipulating the weather report it. And this info then trickles down to all the news networks, and it's delivered and broadcasted up to you as your nightly weather broadcast. So think about it again. The same people that can control and manipulate the weather report it to the US government through the NOAA. So many people within the government would be none the wiser about it actually taking place.
And the thing is as well, it's like NASA's involved in all this stuff as well. It's like NASA and NCAR, which is a National Center for Upper Atmospheric Research Studies. They basically are the ones that helped with the whole cloud seeding and stuff like that in Dubai and stuff like that. They're heavily involved, those two organizations, and we all know that NASA's corrupt as well. We know all the other agencies are corrupt. We know our governments are corrupt, and they're all working together. They just don't care. Yeah.
Why do you think? Yeah, what's your input? Do you think they're corrupt?
Of course they're corrupt. I mean, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, why else would you want it? Like, why? I mean, if you can't use power, if you can't get power to abuse it, what's the point in having it?
But why do you think certain agencies like NASA might be corrupt, or the Pentagon may be corrupt, or the NSA or the CIA? So why in particular do you think NASA would be corrupt? What would have corrupted NASA?
Hmm.
Or to anyone, Hugh, you are the one that suggested that NASA is corrupt. What corrupted NASA? And don't tell me it was the Nazi Spies and Paperclip that came over and corrupted it, because everyone can go there. Give me something about
okay. See, NASA, right? To me, it's like basically NASA gets all these billions and billions of dollars of funding, right? What happens to politicians? So you get politicians and the government figures who get all these organizations.
You're cutting out. You're cutting out every like 10 seconds, mate.
Okay. So you get these organizations, they get lots of funding from the government. What do they do when these political figures leave the political circle? They get high up jobs within these companies, right? So it's like NASA. It's like a lot of people think. I mean, when they were sending the rockets up into the sky, it was costing billions of dollars just for one rocket, and we never got the rocket back.
Well, the budget for NASA used to be a lot larger than it is now. I mean, NASA's not even responsible anymore for sending rockets up to space.
So then Elon Musk came along, and rather than it costing billions of dollars each rocket, Elon Musk like, you know what? Let's just do a flat fee. Let's do $100 million. I'll take it to the atmosphere with whatever weight you want to put on it.
So we're talking about the commercialization of space.
Yeah, and they
are you therefore alluding that it's
the what? Sorry,
that has corrupted NASA? Are you therefore saying it is commerce that has corrupted NASA?
It's like it goes back to that thing I says. Government figures give huge funding to NASA. They get kickbacks, and the kickbacks usually tend to be when they leave the political circle. They get high-paid jobs, not just for themselves, but for family members as well. And these organizations, and people don't even and they don't even know any of the science that's needed to get a job with these firms. They just get a job. They're probably just sitting in an empty office playing video games. Who knows?
What do you think should be done with these people who are getting kickbacks and from the taxpayers' money?
Well, that sound you're making now, maybe that's the way of fixing it,
What sound? I just come from Glasgow. Q, this is the kind of background sound you hear in Glasgow,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, it's usually bottles and sticks in Glasgow. But it's
I didn't make any sound. It's just the sound that was happening in the street.
See, the only way. I'm looking out the window, California, seeing if there's any drive-bys. But Elon Musk is doing the right thing. He's like, it's like Doge is going after. It's like Doge is going after all these big fake companies and stuff like that, and the fake NGOs and all that. They say, that are getting charity money for charities that don't really exist and all that stuff, right? All these people that are
they passed the continuing resolution here. So the thing is with Doge is they're only tackling discretional spending. They're not actually cutting any spending. The spending has already been allocated. All they're doing is when they say they're cutting a program, they're just reallocating the spending. They're not actually cutting the budget. They passed the continuing resolution. The budget is determined by Congress, not by the executive. And Doge
no, they can still do it because
authority over the congressional budget.
Here's, for instance, right? The IRS, right? There's talk that they want to do away with the IRS, right?
No one likes the IRS, Hugh. No one likes them.
See the IRS.
Not even
It's like you imagine in Scotland. In Scotland, you've got the tax centre called Centre One, right? It's like if you fall behind on your taxes, you know, they'll quite happily help you to fix your problems with your tax. If you've paid too much or paid too little, they'll tell you just to make small payments just to fix it. California, or America, if you fall behind on your tax payments or anything like that, you can go to jail for it, right? But it's like the IRS are auditing us, but they don't want to be audited themselves, you know?
Yes.
And basically the US president and Elon, rumor has it that the two of them want to close the IRS down, and the IRS as well. If it's like the IRS, I think, was formed to go after mafia people.
But again, the whole thing, whatever President Trump does, the full Democrat administration, they could just re-employ all those persons that were laid off. So
no. That's exactly what Elon Musk was asked about. He says, "Are you not worried that when you are no longer there, if the Democrats get in, could they just put everything back to where it was before?" But he says he's putting systems in place that I think everything would need to get approved by Congress to make any changes whatsoever.
But that's the case. If they ever achieve a majority in Congress, if they ever get the House and the Senate, then they can do that.
Well, it's. I mean, basically, I think
it's just the way government works. I mean, the US government's broken up, and so not one single branch can monopolize power. And let's face it, Elon Musk gets his authority through the executive, through Trump. He has no authority over Congress, and Congress has authority over congressional spending. Congress passes the budget. So I don't see how Dodge is going to cut the budget. They have the budget. The budget is actually larger than it was the previous year.
I mean, there's an example. There's a USAIS or whatever you call it, right? Doge pretty much closed that place down. And the whole thing with the other party was they were saying, "Oh,
that was a good thing. That was definitely a CIA front."
Yeah, they were all screaming, saying, "You can't do this. Only Congress. This can only get done through Congress and all that stuff." And they were like, "Well, hang on a minute. When was this organization formed? So it's not part and stone of the whole."
Gareth, what do you think about Doge? Because you're a big fan of Doge, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that the way they uncover all the corruption, all the frivolous spending, especially abroad. I think that's good to expose that and to shut that down.
But give me an example of projects that were abroad that they cut.
Well, the most famous one's Iranian Sesame Street.
Right.
And then,
was that a genuine thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oscar Grouch and Brown in it.
Brown.
Dream Bigford as well.
What was it? Didn't you tell me in the past that in the Netherlands their big bird was
blue?
Blue?
Yeah.
So what is it with the multicoloured big birds?
Well, I don't know, but apparently it's to represent the individual country or the culture of the nation.
Right.
So like the big bird is like he's blue mainly, but he's got like white and red, so it gives up the Netherlands flag. And like I don't know why. I'm assuming Iran's got some green on their flag. You know, green and red. So like big bird.
So you think were they allocating a lot of money to that particular project?
Yeah, but I can't. Remember off the
I mean,
top of my head, it
I
was.
can't see the production value of Sesame Street
Oh, this
being
was
that.
in the billions. It was like
No, it
7
couldn't be
billion.
billions to set up. Hugh, do you know how much it costs to set up Sesame Street in Iraq or Iran?
Right.
I mean, it couldn't be billions.
That's what they said. That's the point.
Can you hear us? Is he gone?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, give me 1 second, Stadia.
Right. So I'm a fan of Doge. I'm a fan of what they did to USA in cutting it, and also I think they done away with the what do you call that media enterprise? Is basically a propaganda arm of the United States
PBS.
and no in Eastern Europe, Sound of America or something. There is a propaganda and news arm.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did away with that, but I think there's pushback to get it back on. But I think that as we see with a lot of the stuff that has been uncovered by Doge when it comes to USAID, such as the funding of NGOs in Ukraine in 2014, where they were basically funding people to protest. Now, how is funding protests in Ukraine aid? That doesn't
It doesn't
appear.
stand for it. It's
Agency of International Development, yeah.
yeah. But how does that develop in?
How does that develop? How does that develop in a nation? I mean, that led to the coup of a president, Yanukovych, in 2014, which eventually resulted in the breakaway territories in the Donetsk and Luhansk, which led to a civil war. So it certainly didn't develop their nation.
Or did it develop it in the way that Americans would want it?
Well, that's the thing. We talk about disaster capitalism. You'd knock something down like Gaza, and then Donald Trump wants to rebuild it, and they make a shitload of money.
Like Halliburton in Afghanistan.
Halliburton in Iraq too.
Yeah.
It's-
BlackRock in Ukraine.
BlackRock, and here's another example.
Well, here's the thing. I'm glad Gareth mentioned BlackRock, right? So,
I found that
so obviously BlackRock in the stock market and all that stuff, they own. I think they own about 80% of the stock market or something like that, the Nasdaq or something like that, right? But the whole thing with Ukraine, right? It's as far as I'm aware, BlackRock's trying to get the contract to rebuild Ukraine. As far as I'm aware, I think they were wanting to rebuild Hollywood. They were wanting to rebuild Hawaii and stuff like that.
Isn't there something with the Panama Canal and BlackRock?
Oh yeah, they bought it from China, no, from Panama, and they actually bought it. So.
And Larry Fink, isn't he the CEO? Larry Fink, I mean, and you see these names again and again, like Larry Fink, Rothschilds, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, all of these names. I mean, if you're talking about the CIA thing, Jolly West, and
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, we're talking about how he was lobbying a lot of the governments to do the aerosol injections again and again. Bill Gates' name's involved.
And the fact that he owns more agricultural land in America than else.
That's geoengineering, yeah.
Well, I don't understand this.
And the agriculture.
Right.
If you're doing both,
He's invested. He's very
you're going to
invested.
make a lot of money.
See the whole thing with BlackRock, right? The thing I don't get about BlackRock now, and this is how we know it's so corrupt, right? I remember watching a documentary. I can't remember who out of these three people it was talking about. There was the Rothschilds, there was Carnegie, and there was J.P. Morgan. I think it was J.P. Morgan, right? That he he was buying up everything, and he had Congress, and no, he had the American government and Congress and everything in his back pocket because after the Second World War, it's like we were bankrupt pretty much, right?
Well, J.P. Morgan helped set up a Federal Reserve.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. It's like the Federal Reserve shouldn't really exist,
And you had JP Morgan and Rockefeller and all that basically bought the rail system
Yeah.
before the Federal Reserve. It
Yeah,
helped
so-
monopolize the US economy. And then
So-
once they founded the Federal Reserve, they basically monopolized the financial economy.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. So after the Second World War, it's like you had Ford. Ford had loads of great designs on cars, right? They wanted. It's like Ford almost collapsed. They almost never happened, right? Because I think it was JP Morgan that was or someone else.
I'm going to need to get Hugh. You talk to Gareth. I'll be back in 2 minutes, right?
There was one of these people. I can't remember who it was. They were trying to stop Ford from mass producing all these cars. You know, they had monopolized everything, right? And then basically what happened was Congress basically pulled one of these rich people in front of them. I think it may have been JP Morgan, I think. And basically what they done was they got them to break up their company because it was too big. They monopolized absolutely everything. And then what happened was when their monopolization of all these companies got broke up, that's when Ford felt, this thing has been passed by Congress. Now we can actually mass produce our cars without being worried about being sued and stuff like that, So it takes me back to that thing about how BlackRock is just now. They split these companies up back then for getting too big. Why are they allowing BlackRock to do the exact same thing of what had happened after the Second World War? BlackRock is this is how it's like BlackRock can manipulate politics. They can manipulate politics by manipulating the stock market. And then people say, I mean, I know people were saying not long ago, it's like, oh, the S&P 500 is collapsing and all that stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, the S&P 500, it goes like this, like down. And then
Sure. Listen, I'm going to need to cut this short now, so I'm going to need to log off. But look, it's been good having you on, and for all the viewers who enjoy, if you could like, subscribe, follow.
And
We've got to deal with something that's taking place with the
What time is it in the UK just now? It's almost 9 p.m. in California.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I can see it's getting daylight outside. Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to say farewell and enjoy the rest of your night, man. Right?
Okay, thanks, Vince. Bye, Gareth.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.